Hi there, I'm Rex King, and welcome back to another episode of From the Archive. There are certain directors that have become household names, like Martin Scorsese, Steven Spielberg, Stanley Kubrick. And with anime, there's no exception. There's also many directors whose names you hear and you instantly can understand the type of quality of film you're dealing with. Names like Miyazaki, Hosada, Motoko Shinkai, Tezuka. Once you hear these names, you understand exactly what type of quality that you should be in for. And one of those names is Satoshi Kon. Satoshi Kon was a brilliant anime director, and though he didn't have a huge filmography, the type of quality that he was able to put out was quite outstanding. So, with that in mind, what film do we talk about first when we're talking about Satoshi Kon? Do we start with his first feature length film, Perfect Blue? Well, everyone's kind of talked about that one to death and is still talking about it. And if you know anything about the show, I never like going with the obvious conversation. So let's talk about his second picture, Millennium Actress. So Millennium Actress was directed by Satoshi Kon and was produced by Taru Maki, who, after seeing Perfect Blue, really wanted to work with Kon on a new project. But they really didn't know what they wanted to do. Initially, Kon wanted to do a Paprika adaptation, but because of the studio he was working with going under, he had to push that back. Instead, they decided to do a kind of original picture, and the idea that they came up with came out of Tarumaki stating maybe they should do a film with trompe l'oeil, which is a French term kind of used to describe forced perspective, where multiple different perceptions are used to convey a three-dimensional object, even though the object in question is two-dimensional. It's a really interesting art concept that I could go on about, but needless to say, they liked that idea and thus began the brainstorm for Millennium Actress. The film was produced by Madhouse and distributed by Clockworks. It initially came out on July 28th, 2001 at the Fantasia Film Festival and was released to the rest of the world on September 14th, 2002. It did really good at the Japanese box office. America, not so much, but this is during a time period where anime films weren't really the talk of the town, as they are today, actually. Then there was the critics, and the critics absolutely loved this film, and are still calling it a masterpiece to this day. So, is this truly one of Satoshi Kon's greatest masterworks? Well, let's talk about it. So, Millennium Actress follows a filmmaker by the name of Genba, who is going to interview this elderly actress who disappeared from the limelight 30 years ago. He's going there with his cameraman to get a full-on interview with her, and this actress in question is Chiyoko, who was this famous actress before disappearing from the limelight 30 years ago, like I said, and no one really knows why. So upon meeting her and starting to ask her about her life, Genba and the cameraman find themselves drawn into her story quite literally as they get to see her story unfold. However, things become quite apparent that Chiyoko seems to be mixing her life story with the story of the characters that she has played on screen throughout the years. So, before I continue, I do want to say I will be going into spoiler territory in this review, mainly due to the fact that you really can't break down this story without talking about some of the spoilers within the story of itself. So if you haven't seen Millennium Actress and you want to go into it blind, please stop the video and go do so. If you're still here, you've been warned. So, pretty much the entire story of this film is about Chiyoko's journey to find this painter who she met when she was a kid, but because he was a political refugee, I'm guessing, he had to keep on running from the cops, especially after they discovered him. And this is about her journey to try to find him because she has fallen in love with him. And along the way, like I said, her character's stories mix in with her own story, so you never really can tell what is the character and what is Chiyoko's story. And this is kind of cool because it kind of goes into the like creative process, especially from an actor's point of view. A lot of times actors will take experiences from their own personal life and draw them into the characters that they play. And with Chiyoko, she takes on her journey to find the painter to help inspire the characters that she plays on screen to elevate her performances. Now, what's also really cool is the different perspectives that this film kind of goes with. We have Chiyoko's perspective as she melds her story with that of her characters, as both inspired each other. And then you have Gemba, who is a huge nerd and is also really like into Chiyoko's films and just really enjoying the entire journey that she is describing as he is able to both join in on these stories as he takes the roles of certain characters within the films that she plays. This is all balanced off brilliantly by the cameraman, who's more of a snide, realistic character who kind of takes the opportunity to take jabs at the unrealistic situation that he seems to find himself in, and to make fun of Genba's overreactions to things at certain time periods. Now, what also makes this film work is kind of the motivations. Our characters that are really well written are each trying to accomplish kind of different things, and that's kind of incorporates their different perspectives. Chiyoko is trying to find this painter, as such, her journey is that one focus in mind. But as the film goes on, it becomes quite apparent that the journey took on a life of its own, and she didn't really hate that the adventures that she was going on to try to find this dude. Add that to Gemba, who's, like I said earlier, takes on the roles of certain characters, but he's always taking on the roles of the person who is protecting Chiyoko's character, which has to do with kind of his perspective of wanting to protect both Chiyoko physically and kind of sociologically. Like, he always is protecting her in any way he can to protect kind of his image of her, regardless of the situation. The cameraman, who has no stake in this, gives us the most well-balanced third-party interpretation of these events as someone who has no personal stake in what's going on. This balances off the other two characters really well. At first, I really hated the cameraman and his snide remarks, but I really liked what they ended up doing with the character to balance out the other ideas that the film was putting forth on screen. Now, the kind of tragic thing about the story is that Chiyoko never really reunites with the painter. As we find out later in the film, that's because the painter was killed by this cop who arrested him. And that is supposed to be kind of a bittersweet note, but as Chiyoko says, it has always been the journey that inspired her, which in turn kind of hammers home what the point of the film was trying to make about the journey being the main facet of Chiyoko's life and not the destination. She didn't really care about what the key that she finds that always is what she uses to guide herself to the painter. She never really cared about what the key unlocked. She only cared about the journey and finding the painter. And even though she never found him, she still enjoyed the journey overall. There are tons of small little bits in this film that I could go over and break down, but this review's already going to be longer than anything else I've ever done, so I'm going to just say that the story is absolutely brilliant and has lots of layers to it that I really wasn't expecting, and kind of goes to show you what Satoshi Kon is capable of as a director and screenwriter. And furthermore, this is helped again by some brilliant characters and some really well developed, uh, like they all feel like real people, and with these multiple different perspectives, where it's very easy to find a character to latch onto and guide you through the film. As far as performances are concerned, I watched the dubbed as I do with most anime, mainly because I struggle with subtitles at times, and the dubbing is really well done. Uh, but let's face it, when we're talking about animation, we want to talk about the character designs and the overall visual style, and this film's absolutely beautiful. The different styles of the different films that Chioko was in blend really well with this film that clearly becomes a love letter also to Japanese cinema, as there's a lot of references and hints to other famous Japanese films. And if you're a huge Japanese film historian, you're going to notice these and just absolutely love the film's little like trivia bits that you probably won't notice if you're not a huge fan of Japanese cinema. I am not as familiar with classic Japanese cinema as I would like to be, but I did enjoy the overall different visual styles, and I thought they blend themselves together quite nicely to the film. Then you have the music done by Suzumo Hirazawa. I apologize if I mispronounced that name. And it's an absolute brilliant score that complements the visuals quite well. And when I listened to it isolated, I relatively enjoyed it overall. At the end of the day, Millennium Actress is a brilliant, breathtaking film. If you're a Satoshi Kon film or an anime film enthusiast at all, this is a must buy. In fact, I encourage anyone who's trying to get into anime, who might be a film buff lover, I really advise that you add this film to your collection. I have the steelbook done by Shout Factory, and it is really well put together. There's a making of documentary along with a couple interviews by voice acting talent and some of the producers as well. And I really enjoyed it overall. And I'm really glad that I own this and have it in my collection. Anyway, that's my view on Millennium Actress. And, well, that's going to be tough to follow that up, but I will try. As next time we take a look at Moby Dick. See you then.